and welcome everyone to another episode of Funeral KRT. I'm Tyler Shriek, and look guys, it's not easy having to come up with a spooky name every year. Just give me some credit here, okay?
I'm Sockhead, aka played by Bob Kit Quinn Goldthwait.
Yay!
Please stop making more Halloween decorations into memes. I don't know how many more 8-foot-tall Jack Skellingtons I can look at. I'm Randy Martin.
And joining us for this first spooky episode of the year is a very special guest and a good friend of ours. Please welcome back to the show, Tony Goldmark.
I have the easiest name ever to turn into a Halloween thing, because it's got a thing that rhymes with bone and a thing that kind of sounds like ghoul in it. So yay for me.
Hooray! And also, we forgot to mention, Tony is officially indicted into the Third Timers Club.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
If we don't count the Mickey minisode, then yeah, this is Tony's third time, and ironically enough, he's back for another Halloween episode.
Do I get a commemorative jacket or something? Or
No, we put you back in with the tiger.
oh, okay.
Yay!
We give you a styrofoam cup.
Bad for the environment.
Sure glad that wasn't our plane.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Have you guys heard about this flying gimp that was recently destroyed?
Oh, they took care of it. Now I want my damn machismo.
Oh god, machismo.
So we are talking about a beautifully insane cult classic movie known as Freaked, which we've alluded to several times on this show, actually. So what is everyone's relationship with this movie?
Well, I'm not sure why you made us watch all this real-life, raw documentary footage of Randy Quaid's house, but, seeing what he's up to these days is a little disturbing, but it answers so many questions about the man.
He jumped into the flying gimp and said, "Hello, boys, I'm back!" And then he also sang the yodeling song to Cowboy.
Oh,
Yay!
I still think he should have said styrofoam cup when he flew into the alien ship.
I think he should have said styrofoam cup as Cousin Eddie, because that's probably what he drank from. Anyway, I love this movie so goddamn much. Freaked is legitimately one of my favorite comedies of all time, which pretty much makes it one of my favorite movies of all time, period. I love the freewheeling absurdist anarchy of it. I love how unapologetically gross and vulgar it is, especially for a PG-13 rating.
Wait, this is PG-13?
This is PG-13, believe it or not.
With the several F-bombs they drop?
No, there's only one F-bomb in the whole movie.
Oh, wow,
They
yeah.
drop a lot of S-bombs. They say
Right.
shit a lot, but only one fuck in the whole movie.
Tyler's experiencing the Medela of fuck.
The one F-bomb in this movie is given to the worm guy, so I love that they give the one fuck to the most erudite, British accent guy, the fanciest fucking character.
The fucking we have the caterpillar from Adventures in Wonderland at home on meth.
Freaked is basically aesthetically, it's like a cinematic cross between an issue of Mad Magazine and a wall of graffiti in Austin, Texas.
With a splash of the young ones, too.
Yeah, a lot of young ones influence, I'm sure. The way I like to describe Freaked is, imagine a movie written by the young Zucker brothers, directed by a young Tim Burton, and released by Troma. If such a movie actually existed, it would probably look and feel a lot like Freaked. I mean, put it this way. It's a body horror comedy. How many body horror comedies have you seen? It's this.
Not enough.
Maybe you could make the case for Idle Hands. Maybe.
And also Evil Dead.
Depending on how fucked up your sense of humor is, Tusk could count as a comedy.
Oh yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'll give Tusk a pass. Oh, and of course that comedy classic, The Human Centipede. Laughed my ass and the guy behind me's mouth off on that one.
You want to know what the funniest body horror comedy ever is? The Fly. Because it was produced by Mel Brooks. That's real.
Right.
Look it up.
That's right!
That's real.
Oh my god.
Well, you brought up Evil Dead. Fun fact, You know how around the second or third act changeover in the movie, there's a scene where Randy Quaid is sitting watching TV, and on the TV is Crooked Cops?
Oh, yes.
I shit you not, one of the crooked cops on that TV, an uncredited Sam Raimi.
Fuck yeah.
Because, of course, Sam Raimi had to have some involvement with this movie.
Oh, hey, we like that guy.
The Zygote 24 is secretly the reverse Kier from No Way Home.
Oh, my God, yes.
They're both green.
Years ago, I showed this movie to a bunch of friends at a movie night, and I remember David Gansel in particular observed that Freaked is a spoof movie that's not really spoofing anything. It has all the freewheeling aesthetics of the Zucker brothers or Mel Brooks in their prime, but the story it's telling, such as it is, it doesn't have that much of a story, but the story it is telling is an original one. It riffs a little on The Great Escape and other Prison Break movies, and of course Todd Browning's Freaks, but it's mostly its own thing. And incidentally, earlier this year when I did Not on Disney Plus month on Escape from Walt Disney, this was on the list because it was a Fox movie, which means Disney owns it now.
Hold up. So you're telling me the same studio that now owns American Horror Story Freak Show also owns Freaked?
Crossover or we riot, motherfucker.
Get out of retirement, Jessica Lange. Put on the German accent. You're going back out there and singing Life on Mars.
If they do put it on Disney Plus, they're going to edit it so that Randy Quaid says, "We'll love Disney's alive buttocks."
They're probably just going to be like, "We'll kick Florida's dead ass."
Kit, we could have gotten this instead of Down with Love. Or Randy, we could have gotten this instead of DTV.
Ah, come on.
Instead of watching Blackface, we could have seen this.
I could have watched Mutant Face instead.
I absolutely love Down with Love, but holy crap, Freaked also would have been just as, if not even more, amazing choice. I love this movie. Oh my god.
Yeah, you mentioned Mutant Face. To this day, Alex Winter still hasn't apologized to the mutant community. It's really unfortunate.
Damn it. We trusted him.
It's wild that this is the second thing that we've actually talked about with Alex Winter in it, which the first thing we talked about was Blue's Big City Adventure. I think that was the name. And that was a total fucking 180 from this. You have him playing a fucking cab driver who's like the nicest guy, and in this, he's literally ripping people's fucking heads off in like monster makeup.
Yes.
It's fucking beautiful. Dude is fucking range.
I do think Blue's Big City Adventure could have used a lot more decapitating, but it was cool to know that the...
what couldn't, really?
It's good to know that the inanimate objects are in extreme pain whenever you use them.
This movie, I like to think, is what happened to Bill if Ted got sent to military school.
Oh my god, You're right. Yes, that's canon. That's fucking canon. Even though Keanu Reeves is in this movie, and we'll talk about that. So,
oh yeah.
Right.
So, like a lot of the best things in my life, I first heard about the movie Freaked through my Weird Al fandom.
Yes.
Al used to do this thing in concert where he would open the show by playing the recording of Fun Zone off the UHF soundtrack, the only instrumental track on any of his albums.
And a fucking banger.
Oh yeah, and the lights would go down, and the first thing you'd see on the big screen would be this channel hopping segment, not unlike the channel hopping segment on the Weird Al show, only instead of sketches, in between those quarter-second flashes of static, you'd see all these short, out-of-context, seemingly random, just weird clips from all sorts of pre-existing media, just to put you in a weird mood. There'd be clips from, like, old monster movies and John Waters movies and Tex Avery cartoons and old toy commercials and clips of snails having sex with opera music in the background and, the usual shit.
I believe the proper term is called snecks.
Oh, that's what they're calling it on DeviantArt now, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
DeviantArt's dead. Remember, they're calling it that on Twitter.
Oh, Jesus. It's Deviant X now, I guess. Okay. The clip of, and stuff like all that, and just randomly the clip of Nicolas Cage eating a cockroach in Vampire's Kiss, shit like that. Every now and then he'd throw in something familiar, like a clip from the Brady Bunch theme, just to throw you off even further. And on the 2003 Poodle Hat tour, one of the clips he showed was from this movie, specifically the clip of Stewie opening the door of the plane while it's in flight and getting sucked out, and then instantly the old man in the wheelchair gets sucked out. So that little clip alone, just this random burst of insane cruelty, made me laugh so fucking hard every time that I saw it or even thought about it that I became low-key obsessed with it. And sometime around like 2008, 2009 or so, I asked the Weird Al forum, does anyone know where that particular clip comes from? And someone said, oh yeah, that's the movie Freaked. Now, I had never heard of Freaked. And fortunately, at that exact moment in the space-time continuum, it was available to watch on what was then called Netflix Instant, the fledgling little streaming branch of that ubiquitous DVD rental by mail company known as Netflix. By the way, even though Freaked had come out on DVD by then, I distinctly remember the DVD was not available from Netflix, but it was on the site to stream briefly. I guess a prediction of the future. Sadly, it's not on Netflix anymore.
Another tax write-off.
But it is on YouTube in glorious, pristine HD, so that's awesome.
Remember, back then, streaming was the future.
Yeah.
Netflix ruined everything.
And I just fell in love with this kooky, fucked up, ridiculous gem of a crazy-ass movie. And we should probably talk about. So, well. Before we do that, how did you guys all find out about it?
So I remember I discovered it through your videos, and then on our very first date, you actually brought it up to me because I was like, I wonder what that weird movie he keeps inserting clips of is. Which, funny enough, on the IMDb for this movie, on the connections section, Tony has a bunch of mentions in that section. So
really?
Oh my god.
He's kind of responsible for introducing it to a lot of people.
Oh wow, I'm sorry that must have fucked up so many psyches. No, you know what? I apologize for nothing. This movie's awesome.
Exactly.
Yes.
Tony, there is nothing you can do to my psyche that's not already been done 20 times over.
Let's be real. Nobody who likes this movie is sane, and I mean that in a very good way.
Yeah.
This is distinctly for profoundly abnormal people, and that's what makes it so amazing.
This is a neurodivergent-ass movie, let's be real.
Yes!
And when I found out that it was both directed by Bill himself, because I was and still am a big Bill and Ted fan, and I found out that the effects were done by Screaming Mad George, whose films he did effects were I was going through, I was like, yes, I have to watch this, and I watched it, and I just fell in love with it. This is a definitely underrated comedy masterpiece. Like, it's kind of funny that this movie both fits perfectly into the 90s and at the same time feels like it's the leftover from 70s and 80s parody films, because by the 90s, parody films were kind of starting to go out of style.
Kind of a little. We weren't quite at the era of like fucking date movie and epic movie yet. That wouldn't come for another decade, but
we still had stuff like Spy Hard.
We were safe back then.
Yeah, I mean, this came out a year before the third Naked Gun movie, so the golden age wasn't quite over yet, but I guess we were, just 2 years after that, we had fucking Spy Hard, and then shit like Wrongfully Accused and all. Yeah, so yeah, the bad times were on their way, certainly.
A thing that I really like about this movie, so you know how Captain EO is just like, you look at it and you're like, this only could have ever been made in 1986.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Freaked feels like you look at it and you're like, yeah, this could have only been made in 1993.
100%.
And I love it for that. It's
100%.
just like, it's just like so
absolutely
beautifully Gen X. I fucking love it.
It is a perfect 1993 time capsule in the same way like Nirvana's In Utero could have only have been made in 93. It's that level in my opinion.
And as we record this, we're recording this on October 2nd. Yesterday was the 30th anniversary of this movie.
Oh, really?
Shit.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Similar to another movie we reviewed this year, the Super Mario Brothers movie, both of these movies deserve so much better. Like, honestly, the worst thing that happened to them were the marketing and especially how Fox screwed this movie over.
Don't get excited, Gen Alpha. It's not that Mario movie.
The 93 Super Mario Brothers movie and this would make an amazing double feature.
Yes.
Because they're both such perfect relics of fucked up 90s.
You gotta have a Beavis and Butthead short before it.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like right in between, we gotta get like a Guar music video.
Oh my god, yeah.
I also feel like this movie takes place in the UHF universe. They have such similar energies.
It could, although David Bowie has a small part in it, so maybe Bob has a twin brother.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
right.
God.
We should probably talk about how this movie got made, because I'm sure a lot of people, when they watch this, that's their first question. So, have you ever wondered why, after the Bill and Ted movies came out, or after the first two of them anyway, Keanu Reeves obviously went on to be this massive movie star, The Matrix, John Wick, all these huge franchises, and Alex Winter didn't? Well, you could make the argument that Freaked is to blame for that exact discrepancy, because basically, this was the movie Alex Winter made instead of Bill and Ted 3, even though, of course, they did eventually make Bill and Ted 3. Alex Winter knew that he didn't just want to be an actor. He had more ambition than that. Right off the bat, rather than parlay the success of Bill and Ted into more acting roles immediately, he co-created a short-lived sketch comedy TV series on MTV called The Idiot Box with his writing partners Tom Stern and Tim Burns, who also co-wrote Freaked with him. The Idiot Box sadly only lasted 6 episodes, all of which are on YouTube and highly recommended as well. They are glorious little bites of just fucked upness. Every episode of The Idiot Box is only about 10 minutes long because MTV mandated they play music videos between the sketches. So that's all that. So there's only like 10 minutes worth of sketch in every episode. So it's these nice little bite-sized nuggets on YouTube, highly recommended. Just to give you an idea of the Idiot Box's comic sensibilities, the commercial for it had Alex Winter being dragged through the desert by a couple of guys in black suits and sunglasses, and he says, "Hi, I'm Alex Winter. I have a new show on MTV called The Idiot Box. I hope you watch it, because if you don't, this clown's gonna drive over my head." Cut to a clown sitting in the driver's seat of the car saying, "Man, $20 is $20. And the guys in suits push Alex's head in front of one of the tires, and he just says, "Please watch The Idiot Box." So that gives you an idea where that show was coming from. And the show contains such memorable sketches as The Burrowing Bishop, Sacrifice Your Daughter to Guar, speaking of Guar.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
And, of course, everyone's favorite, Eddie the Flying Gimp from Outer Space. The Flying Gimp reference at the beginning of this movie is a direct reference to a recurring Idiot Box sketch, which is fucking hilarious, called Eddie the Flying Gimp from Outer Space.
Oh my god. I gotta fucking watch this show.
Yeah, the Idiot Box, all 6 episodes are on YouTube. Go check them out.
6! Only
Hell yeah.
6!
It only lasted 6 episodes. They were actually offered a second season by MTV, but I think they got the deal to do this movie like right at the same time, and they had to choose, and they're like, we'd rather make a movie. So,
All right, I'm looking at a little bit of the Idiot Box and looking at the effects, and then remembering the effects for Freaked, and I gotta ask, whoever was in charge of like the stop motion effects, the trippy ass ones, like at the beginning, did they have anything to do with any Peter Gabriel music videos? Yes,
as a matter of fact, the same guy directed part of Peter Gabriel's Big Time video.
I knew it was Big Time.
Let's talk about those opening credits, because that credit sequence for both Freaked and The Idiot Box was directed by an animator named David Daniels, using a process that he invented called Stratacut, which is basically like claymation combined with a flip book combined with a loaf of bread. Let me elaborate. Basically, for each shot, he built this very specifically and strategically designed loaf of clay, which he then slices like a loaf of bread and photographs each slice as a new frame of film. So as he goes further down into the loaf of clay, the image changes rather like a piece of animation, and this gives it a fluidity not often seen in traditional claymation. It's such a cool idea, and in addition to the big time video, the same animator also used that process for a few Pee-wee's Playhouse segments.
Nice.
So David Daniels Stratacut, amazing stuff.
And I fucking love it. Oh my god.
But anyway, back to how this movie was made. They originally developed this script under its original title, Hideous Mutant Freaks, with freaks spelled Freekz. And they developed it as this low-budget, ultra-violent horror movie that would have had a budget of about $100,000, and which would have been a vehicle for, of all goddamn bands, the Butthole Surfers.
We got new clothes from the donation bin. I'm a surfer.
For those listeners who aren't familiar with the Butthole Surfers, they were this aggressively weird experimental noise rock band from San Antonio whose whole aesthetic, if you couldn't tell by their name, was basically, what if a band was a shitpost? They would do all this intentionally abrasive, chaotic, edgelordy shit like have two drummers on stage at the same time, or let the lead singer have his dick out for the whole show, or fire a real shotgun over the crowd at Lollapalooza, or
holy shit.
Or release albums with amazing titles like Rembrandt Pussy Horse and Locust Abortion Technician and Independent Worm Saloon. All real Butthole Surfers albums, folks. So,
and I played bass for all of those bands, by the way.
So imagine those guys writing and starring in a super low budget, extra gory horror movie about circus freaks, and you get a good sense of what Hideous Mutant Freaks was originally conceived as. Incidentally, my first exposure to the Butthole Surfers was also through Weird Al. A lot of things I got exposed to as a young man were, when Al appeared alongside the Butthole Surfers lead singer Gibby Haynes on a 90s episode of Politically Incorrect, which you can also find on YouTube. Speaking of Hideous Mutant Freaks, if you can stand Bill Maher's face.
It's a good show. I just pretend he's someone else.
Yeah, exactly. The topic was rock lyrics, and one of the highlights in the episode was a moment when Gibby Hayes insists that the John Lennon song God contains a lyric where John sings, "I don't believe in butter." Turns out he'd misheard Buddha. So,
well, I mean, the dude couldn't believe it's not butter.
No, he couldn't believe it's not Buddha.
I can't believe it's not butter.
I'm surprised this movie didn't come up during the one-hit Wonderland episode for Pepper by the Butthole Surfers.
Well, the Butthole Surfers didn't have a lot of involvement in the finished movie, although they did some of the music for it, which we'll talk about the music in this movie. And also, Gibby Haynes has a cameo in this movie. He's the guy in the freak show audience who yells, "Hey, he's got a hand under there!" after Sockhead's sock comes off his head.
I don't know why this just came to me right now, but you're telling me that there's actually, like, real people in the world named Gibby?
Yes. Well, at least one.
So iCarly did not make up the name Gibby?
Maybe that's where iCarly got it. I don't know. So anyway, Alex Winter had actually worked with the Butthole Surfers before. Back in the 80s, he directed a short film that they starred in called Barbecue Movie, which was basically a spoof of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Alex Winter has described their initial vision of Hideous Mutant Freaks as Beach Blanket Bingo meets The Evil Dead.
Yes.
So even more weird and trippy and psychedelic and over the top than the finished film, if that's conceivable. So not the kind of movie that would ever in a million fucking years get made at a major studio in a sensible world. But fortunately, our world is not always sensible. And their script attracted the attention of one Mr. Joe Roth. Now, Joe Roth is truly the unsung hero of this film, or maybe the sung hero, whatever. But without him, this would not have gotten made, period. At the time, he was the chairman of 20th Century Fox, and he would in fact later go on to be the chairman of Disney in the later half of the 90s.
Oh my
In
God.
fact, he replaced Jeffrey Katzenberg after Katzenberg went off to co-found DreamWorks. Now, Joe Roth was a very successful studio mogul with very good commercial instincts. Probably his biggest crowning achievement at Fox was greenlighting the first Home Alone movie after Warner Brothers foolishly rejected it. So he made Fox a whole lot of money off that alone, but he also had a sincere appreciation, God bless him, for weirder, more offbeat projects, and he very much saw the value in hiring crazy auteurs and just letting them do their thing. Among other things he greenlit were Tim Burton's passion project Edward Scissorhands, after, again, Warner Brothers passed on it. Fucking Warner Brothers.
God, Warner Brothers is just so good at making terrible decisions, aren't they?
They really are. Eternally.
Wow, so David's just keeping up the tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Joe Roth greenlit Naked Lunch, the David Cronenberg film. He had a great working relationship with the Coen brothers. If not for Joe Roth, we probably never would have seen Miller's Crossing or Barton Fink.
Wow.
Joe Roth even let Barry Levinson and Robin Williams make the movie Toys, which no one else in Hollywood wanted to make, and probably for good reason. And in fact, it might be because of Toys that Joe Roth lost his job at Fox. That timeline actually does match up in that regard. That just occurred to me.
Is that the one where Robin Williams says Neon Genesis Evangelion?
No, that's 1 Hour Photo.
That's 1 Hour Photo, but that is still a good fucking movie. I definitely recommend that.
Toys is a weird fucking movie. You guys should cover that someday. But
yeah, maybe.
But also, while at Fox, Joe Roth also greenlit the Hot Shots movies and Mel Brooks's Robin Hood Men in Tights. So he also very much understood spoof comedy. And I think he saw the Hideous Mutant Freaks screenplay as an exciting fusion of both. This very weird, offbeat, spoofish comedy. And also, Wayne's World had just come out and been a massive hit for Paramount. So I think he was trying to get some of that audience as well.
This is definitely from the same school of thought as the Hot Shots movies, because it's kind of like the same offbeat, slapsticky humor.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But now Joe Roth wasn't really interested in making a Butthole Surfers movie for some reason. I don't know. But
How could you not be?
How can you surf a butthole?
But he was very interested in developing this Hideous Mutant Freak screenplay as a PG-13 starring vehicle for Alex Winter, who of course was fresh off the Bill and Ted movies. So that's what it became. And this little $100,000 indie movie was given a $12 million budget just because Joe Roth had that much faith in it. And in fact, he had so much faith in it, he actually commissioned a line of action figures for this movie.
Wow.
I am not kidding. They actually released 4 resin action figures of Ricky Coogan as Freak Boy, Julie Ernie fused as one person, Cowboy, and Ortiz the Dog Boy. Those action figures were very briefly sold at places like Spencer's Gifts and Suncoast. Remember
Holy
Suncoast,
shit.
kids? And nowadays they go for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on eBay. So don't even bother. They're way too expensive.
I fucking love Spencer's. You ever need disco lights, incense, a sticker, a choker, a vibrator, and a freaked action figure?
Right now on eBay, a collection of freaked action figures are going for $2,000 and $40 shipping on eBay right now.
Good
Okay, I'm
Lord.
actually less outraged about the thousands of dollars and more outraged about the $40 shipping. What the fuck? It's action figures.
Well, you were mentioning getting a vibrator and a freaked action figure at Spencer's. Why not both? Why not just use your freaked action figure as your... I think they can double as that.
Well, I think there's actually some safety issues. You could actually get an infection from prolonged use.
You could get Zygrot 24 inside you. That's no good, yeah.
Talk about doggy boy style.
Yeah, and then before you know it, your vagina is now the Venus flytrap from Little Shop of Horrors. It's screaming, feed me. And that's going to be a whole problem.
When I heard about the action figures, for some reason I thought they were going to have the designs that were on the posters that they were reading as they were entering where the freak show was. I was thinking, are those the original designs?
That could be this movie's version of how Jurassic Park actually shows concept art of the Jurassic Park ride or so. I don't know. Now, unfortunately, the reason you most likely haven't heard of this movie, if you're a listener, obviously we all have, but unfortunately, the reason why the average person probably hasn't heard of this movie is because about midway through production, tale as old as time, there was a regime change at 20th Century Fox.
Of course.
Joe Roth was out, and another executive, Peter Churnin, replaced him, and Peter Churnin hated this movie. He hated the script, he hated the dailies, he hated the $12 million had been poured into it. He forced them.
He just hated fun. He just hated when people had fun. He was like, no, charts and audiences.
He's literally one of the fucking ESS assholes that this movie was making fun of.
Yes! He's the EES guys. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, firing Joe Roth is the second worst thing Rupert Murdoch ever did.
Oh, God. But he forced this production to seriously cut down on the post-production budget, in particular, which is why some of the post-production CGI effects look a little dodgy. But he also forced them to change the title from Hideous Mutant Freaks to simply Freaked, which Alex Winter and Tom Stern really didn't care for because it reminded them too much of the movie Zapped, the 80s teen sex comedy with Scott fucking Baio.
And a pre-Bible man, Willie Ames.
Oh, God, yes. Now, the movie still could have been saved if it had tested really well, but unfortunately, it did not. It was a case where they got completely the wrong audience to play this movie for. They corralled a bunch of fucking dumbass teenage Pauly Shore fans in the Valley, basically.
You were supposed to get the guys selling weed in the alley.
Exactly.
That's simple. You were supposed to get your friend who's been on your couch for a month and says, yeah, no, I got a place lined up, but then he never fucking leaves.
You're supposed to get the weed dealers, not the clients. What the fuck? So
Exactly.
But yeah, they didn't get freaked at all. I remember on the DVD commentary, the directors recalled that in test screenings, when Brook Shields first appears on screen at the beginning, someone in the audience screamed the word bitch. And
fuck them.
What'd she do?
You know, we mentioned the opening credit sequence, that great animation technique. I love the song that Henry Rollins and Blind Idiot God made for the credits. It just feels right that the first voice you hear in this movie is Henry Rollins.
That intro just felt so, like, perfectly encapsulating Gen X.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how it just does.
It's borderline seizure-inducing is the thing. It's like the fucking Ark of the Covenant, where if you look at it too long, your face just fucking melts off.
They would probably have to put a seizure warning at the top of this movie.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I know there's some people out there with autism that can relate to this. You ever just kind of, like, purposely give yourself sensory overload just for the thrill?
Oh, me. I do that all the time.
I just need to
that's
feel
what this-
something, god damn it.
That's what this movie is perfect for.
I want to say something about the music because that was another area where they were kind of fucked over by having the post-production budget slashed. They were planning a soundtrack album for this movie, which would have been amazing.
They should have, yeah.
Well,
Didn't they have Iggy Pop on it at one point?
at one point, Iggy Pop, Motorhead, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers all agreed to record tracks for this movie, which is probably why Ernie's wearing a Chili Peppers t-shirt in a bunch of scenes.
Synergy!
But then when the post-budget got annihilated, they couldn't afford any of those acts anymore. So the songs you do hear in this film are pretty much all just them calling in favors from personal friends, like the Butthole Surfers and Henry Rollins and Blind Idiot God.
Fox will pay for what they've done.
Yes.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Where's the VHS filter? They took this from you.
Interestingly enough, the same year this came out, the movie Coneheads came out, and the big single from that soundtrack was a Chili Pepper song called Soul to Squeeze, and the music video for Soul to Squeeze actually had a freak show motif to it. So I wonder if they originally wrote that song for this movie and had that video concept for it, but then when the post budget for this fell through, they just went, fuck it, Coneheads. We'll do it for that movie instead.
I smell a conspiracy.
I have no proof of that, but maybe the timeline would match up.
Isn't the whole point of a conspiracy that you have no proof?
Of course. Now, the teensy bit of money that the studio did give them for new songs pretty much all went to the Parliament Funkadelic track over the end credits. And they didn't put out a soundtrack album at the time because, again, no post budget, although they did eventually release a super rare limited edition vinyl pressing of the Freaked soundtrack in 2020, which actually featured a demo version of the song Iggy Pop was going to contribute. But unfortunately, that was such a limited edition that, like the action figures, it's super fucking expensive now. So, by the way, I also want to point out the production designer of this movie is Katherine Hardwick, who, I shit you not, went on to direct the first Twilight movie.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Crazy world.
No fucking kidding.
One other thing I forgot to mention in my introduction to the movie, admittedly for a while I kept mistaking it for the only movie Dan Aykroyd has ever directed, by the way, Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing
which,
But Trouble,
Oh, this was given me those
in my
vibes.
opinion, is a much worse version of this movie, although it does have its moments.
Yeah, kinda.
Doesn't that have a cameo from the Digital Underground?
Not just a cameo, they do a whole fucking song in it.
Oh,
That's
shit.
right.
It was Tupac's first ever screen appearance.
Oh,
Holy shit.
Because he was briefly a member of Digital Underground during the window they shot Nothing But Trouble.
So anyway, going back to this, while I am very sad this movie got screwed over and it caused Alex Winter to leave the industry for a while, I gotta say, being deep in obscurity land almost feels like it's where it belongs at the same time.
Yeah, kinda. It's one of those movies where it feels like if it had been a bigger hit, it almost would have missed the point.
Absolutely.
This is the kind of movie that deserves to be discovered, and
Absolutely.
And the people who discover it tend to just really have this insane love affair with it, like I do. That's why I put clips from it in so many videos.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my relationship with this movie is one single thing. While I was watching this, every time I spotted a clip that was in a Some Jerk with a Camera video, I would stand up like Peter Griffin and be like, he said it. He said it.
There it is.
That's the drinking game for this movie.
I didn't go into it, but the bulk of my relationship with this movie is, of course, the first time I watched Tony's video on Halloween time at Disneyland. There's the clip that you put in with redacted characters that I don't want to spoil, but
right.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, I need to find out what the fuck this movie is. So
Yes.
really, Weird Al is the gift that keeps on giving in a way.
Oh yeah, I got it from seeing a clip at a Weird Al concert. You saw clips of it in my videos. Just
Yes.
circle of life.
I do gotta preface that most of my notes are probably just gonna be quotes from the movie, because
Yeah.
Absolutely.
this
yes.
movie is always one step ahead. I love it.
This is one of those movies where it's like, can I really even say what happens from beginning to end? Or is the best way to describe this movie to just talk about it and talk about how cool it is and say all of our favorite parts?
This movie makes sober people feel high.
Yes.
I've never watched this movie high, and I'm slightly afraid to. I'm worried I
God.
might go over the top a little bit.
Oh, I'll go in. I'll go full in.
Randy, are you sure that kind of seems like a death wish?
I'll watch it on every drug I can find just to so you know what you're getting into. You know what? I'll do it. I won't just do weed. I'll be doing Molly. I'll be doing cocaine. I'll be doing meth and watching this. I know a guy. I think his name is Jesse.
You're braver than the troops.
So many amazing gags in this movie. Right off the bat, when he's being interviewed by Brook Shields in the fucking framing device of this movie. One of my favorite jokes in it is when she very calmly and somberly says, the very mention of your name makes children scream in terror. Ricky Coogan, and you hear the children scream in terror. Have I mentioned I love this movie? This is fucking great.
And also she says he's the star of the Ghost Dude movies, and I was like, that sounds like an even worse sequel to Ghost Dad.
Oh my God. I feel like the whole Ghost Dude runner and how all of Ricky Coogan's movies have the word dude in it. At one point you see a Robo Dude poster and shit like that. I feel like that's Alex Winter exercising his own demons a little of the fact that most people know him as Bill S. Preston, Esquire. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's him making fun of himself for being in a movie, playing a character who just says dude a lot,
He's like the teenage version of Troy McClure.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the Everything Except Shoes Corporation was later turned into the Everything Except Fabric Softener store from Captain Underpants. Changed my mind.
Right. Well, Captain Underpants probably got it from this movie, but funny story about Everything Except Shoes. That was based on a very esoteric reference. It came from a local commercial that Alex Winter saw when he was a kid for this clothing outlet near where he lived. Again, it was just this locally produced commercial where it showed the owner of the clothing outlet and he on camera going, "Come on in, we got everything except shoes." And then the camera panned down to his feet to reveal he was barefoot.
Oh, God.
Just the weirdest joke that Alex Winter retained into adulthood. So when they had to come up with the name of the corporation, fuck it, everything except shoes. Why not?
And also, I fucking love the gag with the guy from Santa Flan.
Santa Flan, named for the patron saint of creamy desserts. That's fucking great. And I don't know if this was on mic, but we mentioned Deep Roy earlier. That's Deep Roy, is the bit where the guy from Santa Flan keeps shrinking and it keeps cutting back and he's smaller and smaller. One of those smaller versions of the Santa Flan guy is Deep Roy, who eventually played all the Oompa Loompas in Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And speaking of the cast, we should also mention the head of EES is played by the amazing William Sadler, who, of course, had previously worked with Alex Winter when he played Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
That's right.
And shortly after this, he played Haywood, one of the prisoners in the Shawshank Redemption. So, yeah, a fantastic actor. Hasn't been in a lot of high-profile stuff since the 90s, but definitely deserves to. Just an amazing actor.
Something I just thought of for Halloween Horror Nights. You know how they had the Bill and Ted show, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What if they did a freak show?
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Well, they couldn't now because it's owned by Disney, unfortunately. But oh my God, a freaked Halloween show would be the greatest fucking thing ever.
It would have been prime fucking real estate.
Yeah.
Even more so than Bill and Ted, because at least they're not desecrating that.
Yeah.
At least Freak is depraved in its own right.
Exactly.
I mean, you never know. Disneyland, at least, I don't know about Disney World, but Disneyland at least has been getting a little edgier with Halloween, so...
Have a Randy Quaid lookalike hosted, or just tranquilize Randy Quaid and get him out there because just brainwash him for a night so he forgets he's a QAnon freak and just have him play Elijah again.
In the words of Ricky Coogan, you look like a regular old dumb shit to me.
Yeah.
just let him do his QAnon rants on stage. It'll be part of the character.
Well, let's talk about Randy Quaid because I know that nowadays Randy Quaid is basically a circus freak himself. He's become a deranged, unhinged, unshaven QAnon conspiracy theorist nutball to the point where it's very easy to forget what a beloved and respected character actor he once was. We mentioned, the Vacation movies and Independence Day, and of course, the voice of Alameda Slim and Home on the Range, and he even got an Oscar nomination for The Last Detail back in the 70s. But for my money, this movie was his crowning achievement as an actor. He was never better on screen than he was in this movie. He is chewing every last ounce of scenery, clearly just having the goddamn time of his life, playing basically, what if Colonel Sanders was also Dr. Frankenstein?
In all fairness, who's to say that Randy Quaid is not currently, as himself, playing a Randy Quaid character?
Of course.
Odds are, just like in this movie, he probably has a giant fucking statue of himself in his front yard.
Definitely.
I would be surprised if he didn't turn out to be a crazy QAnoner.
This is kind of off topic, but have any of you heard of the movie Parents?
Oh my God,
no,
Parents. That is
a
crazy fucking movie. Yeah. That's another amazing Randy Quaid performance. And Randy Quaid's whole introductory monologue in this movie. There are no weirdos here. That might be my single favorite villain introduction in any movie ever. Just the way he luxuriates over the line. But as for weirdos, not a one.
You'll rise out of the ashes like a phoenix, except ugly.
Elijah was going to send you to Phoenix?
So we should talk about what the quote-unquote plot of this movie is. It's that Ricky Coogan is a child actor who...
Played by Alex Winter, yeah.
Yeah, he agrees to be the spokesperson for EES, flies up to Santa Fe with his friend, comes across a protester that he basically cons into coming onto the trip with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we forgot to mention, too, the brilliant fucking plane scene.
Oh my God.
Yes.
The plane scene where we get the clip that first introduced me to this movie, obviously, random act of old man in wheelchair violence, which, we mentioned some jerk with a camera. I later used that fucking plane wheelchair clip in my Captain EO video.
That's right.
I believe I could fly my.
Yeah, there you go, Captain EO of all things.
Yeah, and I made sure to play it back to back with the clip of the wheelchair falling in the lake in Mac and Me. It's like the Paul Rudd Conan clip.
They're literally akin with each other. Let's be real.
That's synchronicity right there with wheelchairs just falling. But
the fucking flight attendant taking the bomb. Would you like me to put your bomb in the overhead carrier?
Yeah,
played by Morgan fucking Fairchild, by the way.
That's right.
Keep in mind, this was a good few years after the Lockerbie incident.
That's right.
Oh, God.
Also, I love the joke where they're like, they showed us an in-flight movie, Return to the Blue Lagoon, and Brook Shields is like, I heard that was terrible.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Also, I just gotta say this about Brook Shields because I can't see her without thinking this, only because this was my first introduction to her because I'm a fucking millennial.
Mm-hmm.
But my first introduction to Brook Shields was her as Miley's mom in Hannah Montana, Miley's dead mom.
That's right. Yeah.
So I've just decided, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but throughout this whole thing, I've just decided, you know what? That is in the same universe as Hannah Montana. That is Miley Stewart's mother.
I also had canon this is a much more adult version of her appearance on The Muppet Show.
Oh, yes.
And yes, all through the whole movie, even the twist ending, I was like, "Yep, nope, that's Miley Stewart's mom. That's who fucked Robbie Ray Cyrus."
That's how Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker shrunk and expanded Brook Shields in that Muppet Show episode was with Zygrot 24.
I knew I should have done the Muffin Show instead.
I mean, for what it's worth, at least she didn't turn into a fucking raccoon in this one.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if this movie came out in 2013, that joke would be replaced with Furry Vengeance, for sure.
And of course, after that wheelchair scene, like, the flight attendant just shuts the door, no problem. While wearing heels, no less. That's impressive. Yeah.
Pre 9/11 planes. Which, speaking of that scene, we got to talk about Stewie Gluck.
Stewie Gluck, yes, America's sweetheart himself.
Absolutely.
This kid gets put through the fucking ringer solely for existing, and I kind of love it.
I love how much random cruelty this movie inflicts on that annoying little twerp. Yeah, it's mean, but damn it, it's the funny kind of mean.
One of my favorite jokes later on in the movie is when he gets the information about Ricky's whereabouts, and he says, "I'm going to go to all the press." And it's just a montage of him getting thrown through a window each time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: you don't have to feel bad about him falling out of the airplane because he literally turns out okay.
He misses the big pile of dirt.
You know, we talk about Muppet eating every now and then, but we never really give pause to dummy eating.
Or child eating.
I mean, because really, there would be no Muppet eating without that.
The child actor who played Stewie was Alex Zuckerman, whose other big claim to fame was playing one of the Lost Boys in Hook. So look for Stewie Gluck in Hook, I guess, next time you watch Hook.
He was also in Blank Check, but we won't hold that against him.
Oh, was he? Okay.
He was the bully in that movie.
Oh, he was the bully?
Oh, wait, it wasn't a bully, but somebody named Butch.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that was an ironic name. I haven't seen Blank Check in ages.
I thought it was agreed upon that we don't talk about Blank Check.
And by the way, when the book falls on Stewie, that's fine. Would have been even funnier if the old man in the wheelchair fallen on it like that.
Yeah.
Would have been even better.
I feel like they really wanted to do that, but there was like either they couldn't figure out a way to like do it convincingly, or someone said no, we hate
The
fun.
first time oh, sorry.
Like, if you're gonna yeet one dummy, why not yeet two?
The first time I watched this movie, I thought that Stewie was gonna be like Ricky's buddy to his Bob Parr, but instead they did something much funnier with it, and I love that. The whole, they're soulmates.
This was kind of a pre-Incredibles just comment on parasocial fan culture, really. I mean,
if anything, this is actually parasocial fan culture, because this guy's obsessive fan ended up not only having
he saves the
a
day.
special spiritual he saves the day and has a special connection with him. So what you're saying is, I just need to like think really hard and I could have my own parasocial psychic relationship with Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Sure, why not? I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
Hang on, I gotta start thinking.
I want one with Alfred Molina.
And by the way, of course, this was pre-internet, so the word troll meant something very different back then, which is why they kept referring to him as a creepy little troll.
Troll back then meant what gremlin means today.
Troll meant, oh my god, that fucking
I also love that he looks exactly like the Mad Magazine kid.
Yeah, like Alfred E. Newman, yeah.
It's the fucking giant ears they give him.
Yeah.
They had to have done that on purpose.
Oh, I also want to talk about Ricky Coogan's friend Ernie, who tags along for the trip and gets body fused with the protester Julie. Ernie is, of course, played by Michael Stoyanov, who at the time would have been famous for playing the character Tony on Blossom, of all damn things.
Whoa.
Huh.
That kid was one of the main characters on Blossom, and he later went on to be an excellent sketch comedy writer. He wrote for Conan, Mr. Show, and the Dana Carvey Show. So, wow.
That's cool. I was expecting Ernie to get on my nerves because the way he was coming across at first was a little too Revenge of the Nerds for me, but thankfully the way they play him out in a much more lighthearted way, and he often gets his ass beat for his behavior. So I was like, yeah, that saves it a lot.
Oh god, the slapstick between him and Julie is so well timed.
Hey, Julie, how many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
2. 1 to screw it in, and 1 to ride my Rodney.
Here's the thing. I dare you. I fucking dare you. And by the way, it cannot be Disney. It cannot be aimed towards general audience. I dare you to go back into the library of 90s movies and find a single one that has aged well by today's standards.
Yeah.
You're not going to find one.
You know, while this movie that has jokes that haven't exactly aged well, it doesn't really punch down.
Yeah,
this movie has aged better than most 90s comedies. I mean, we'll talk about one of the fundamental areas where it arguably hasn't aged well a little later, but
oh yeah.
Well, we should talk about the most arguably problematic element of this movie, which is, of course, casting Mr. T as the bearded lady. Now, I gotta say, rewatching this movie, I was honestly surprised how relatively well it aged. This is it was one of those things that very easily could have aged horrendously. I mean, compared to Ace Ventura, this is the fucking Barbie movie, as far as I'm concerned. And look, I'm certainly not in any position to say that this definitely ages perfectly. Like, if any listeners out there find the portrayal of this character hideously offensive, I respect that. I don't dispute your disgust in any way. Certainly the basic premise of casting Clubber fucking Lang as a trans woman does carry some pretty ugly casual 90s transphobia with it. But if you want my worthless cishet opinion, I think the execution saves it. And
absolutely.
If you want my genderqueer lesbian opinion, I
agree.
And I attribute it working as well as it does to Alex Winter and his other writers. And like you said, not punching down, really, having tremendous empathy for all their freak characters beneath the dumb jokes. And yeah, there's lots of dumb jokes, but you know, this was a time when trans people were widely considered little more than freak show oddities themselves, unfortunately. Every so, no one really thought about them, but every so often you'd see one on a daytime talk show like Donahue or Sally Jesse Raphael, shows that many pundits of the time were basically deriding as modern day circus freak shows. But, they'd tell their stories. And I have to imagine that the writers based the bearded lady's dialogue in this movie on seeing a real trans person on a talk show or something, because they use language very similar to that, just going, I was confused, a walking contradiction, full of questions. Now, what sucks a little when you think about it is that the presumption is that, Mr. T saying all this stuff will automatically make it inherently funny. But because they are fundamentally empathetic towards all of this, I think it comes off as surprisingly powerful and endearing in its own way, at least in a modern context.
Yeah.
Actually, funny that you mention it. One of my favorite Letterboxd reviews for this movie says surprisingly positive trans affirmation for the 90s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in the flashback we get where everybody's explaining their origins. She's actually willing to, undergo this treatment.
Right.
She just wants to keep her beard, and I love that for her.
Granted, I kind of do take some umbrage towards the end where everybody, spoiler, is kind of detransformed, and that includes her.
Yeah.
Did she detransition?
Yeah.
Maybe.
What was that supposed to imply?
Well, I guess he's a detransitioner, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's presented as a happy ending, which kind of sucks. But that's the one area where I think this depiction kind of trips over the finish line, if you will. But you know what?
Maybe non-binary.
Again, it's the 90s. What are you going to do? And again, Ace Ventura was only a few months away when this came out, so it could have been so much goddamn worse. I mean, the real non-binary icon in this movie is Julie Ernie. I think we can all agree.
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
And also, another thing I brought up in terms of what aged well in this movie, I remember learning about the behind the scenes of Basket Case 2. The people in charge really wanted to make sure that the creatures in the movie didn't come across as offensive to people with disabilities. And I feel like that was very similar to here because none of them feel like a caricature.
Right. Well, they are all basically just walking cartoon characters, but everyone in the movie is a walking cartoon character. And ultimately, they're all the good guys. They're all trying to escape. The bad guys, very rightly, are the people in power.
What I've noticed is the only stereotypes are the animals. Like the dog acts like how everyone thinks a dog acts. The cow acts like how everyone thinks a cow acts. It's a male cow and they gave him udders, so you know what? We could just say that cow was trained too.
Yeah.
By the way, fun fact about Mr. T. So just literally like a week or so before filming wrapped on this movie, Mr. T suddenly decided to himself that he was tired of dressing in drag and he just went home without telling anyone one day. He didn't pick a fight with anyone. He didn't have any arguments. He just literally disappeared one night and flew back home without telling anyone. And they still needed him for a few scenes. And when they called him, he just said, nah, can't do it. Can't wear the dress anymore. And they just couldn't for the life of him get him to come back. As Alex Winter later put it, he was a really good sport until he wasn't. And he was especially pissed because he was on the phone like, dude, I have to wear this hideous prosthetic on my face all day. All you have to wear is a dress. But Mr. T just wouldn't budge on the issue. So for the last few scenes they needed him for, they ended up hiring a Mr. T lookalike to play the bearded lady, mostly in just a few crowd shots where they mostly put him towards the back where you couldn't quite tell. They couldn't even get him to do ADR. So Lee Arenberg, who played the Eternal Flame in this movie, and who, by the way, went on to play Pintel in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Not the guy with the wooden eye, but the bald guy who was always hanging out with the guy with the wooden eye. That's Lee Arenberg. He played the Eternal Flame. But Lee Arenberg, in addition to playing that role, also does Mr. T's ADR in this movie, just because he could do a dead-on Mr. T impression. So that's something to look and listen for in this movie. Fake Mr. T.
Yeah, I did not even remotely notice.
Yeah, so on one hand, I guess it's kind of a dick move. On the other hand, given how much Fox was fucking with the movie, I can't really say I blame him. So, yeah.
And incidentally, in preparing for this podcast, I read the original script for this movie. And in the original script, they straight up named the Eternal Flame the Human Torch. I'm guessing they had copyright problems with that. Which
Fox didn't own X-Men yet, so
not yet.
Or
Well,
Fantastic
Four.
Four.
Yeah, no, not yet. At the time, Roger Corman still had the film rights for that. So
I'm looking at that script right now. Before we got Brook Shields, we were originally going to get Regis and Kathy Lee.
Oh.
That's right.
Oh
that
my
God.
They'd written it as a cameo for them, and I think I think the script probably just horrified them too much.
Now that you mention it, I'm imagining that Regis Philbin sketch in the Dana Carvey show is what would have happened.
Regis and Kathy Lee are like, look, we'll do the Dudley Do-Right movie, but we got to draw the line somewhere. It's like this.
What I'm wondering now is, what would they have brought up to Regis and or Kathy for them to go, oh, that one sucked?
I don't know. Maybe some joke about Kathy Lee doing Carnival Cruise Lines or something. I don't know.
So in hindsight, it's actually better that we got Brook Shields, because then we had that little Blue Lagoon joke.
Which, funny enough, didn't even star her. It was Mila Jovovich in that movie.
Also, the big Brook Shields punchline in this movie is funnier with Brook Shields than it would have been for Regis and Kathy Lee.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's totally.
Possibly my single favorite joke in this movie, which is really saying something, is sure glad that wasn't our plane.
Yes, I feel like I've seen that joke somewhere before.
The Simpsons did a very similar joke the following year in the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode.
That's right. Oh my God.
Yeah. Sure glad that wasn't us. Yeah. They're driving down the road at night on their way to Itchy and Scratchy Land, and they're all getting tired. And Marge says, we better pull over at a motel. And Homer's like, I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. Cut to an exterior shot of their car crashing into the tree, but then it pulls back to reveal they're in a motel room watching a car crash into a tree. And they're like, sure glad that wasn't us, which I'm not saying they stole that joke from Freaked, because, again, no one fucking saw Freaked, but it's interesting synchronicity there.
I mean, it's a hilarious setup.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's what I said on my vacation in New York recently.
Oh, God.
I was talking about Sully, you sicko.
One of my favorite running gags in this movie is when they show the group of protesters, they're just that one guy with the I like Ike sign.
I like Ike. I love that guy. And that becomes a running gag.
I feel like that's a gag that's used so much, and I fucking love it every time. Whatever social issue causes a huge worldwide protest next, I'm going there. I'm going there with an I like Ike sign.
God damn it, if only the writer's strike wasn't over. Motherfucker.
Ah, fuck, that would have been perfect.
Oh,
God, yes.
Yeah.
if SAG doesn't get their deal, then we'll do it for them.
You know what? I'll just roam Hollywood on my own with a picket sign that says I like Ike. They can figure that one out.
I like Ike, the Eat It Joes of politics.
Some of the other protest signs in there I want to acknowledge. A little girl is holding up a sign that says Ricky Coogan sucks shit.
Yes.
And also one of the protest signs just says Ghost Dude sucks.
I also fucking love when he's in disguise as the guy who got hurt so he can pick up Julie, and then when she's talking about how much Ricky Coogan sucks and how much Christian Slater is better, he just goes fucking berserk and just breaks out.
That's another amazing joke. If I can just find the right disguise, smash cut to, he's covered head to toe in bandages. And also, when Alex Winter is in those bandages, is it me, or does he look a lot like Tobey Maguire?
I don't know. He looked to me like he was born with glass bones and paper skin.
Yes, that's what I put too. And also, I fucking love the gag when they're driving through the forest and she's like, okay, fine, maybe Zygrot won't turn people into a dog boy.
Yeah, the billboard gag, that was great. And by the way, Julie is played by Megan Ward, who was one of those actresses who was always typecast as just the girl in 90s comedies. Yeah. She was also in Encino Man, PCU, Joe's Apartment. And honestly, this might have been the only movie that wasn't a complete waste of her talents. They actually let her have fun with her role in this one. So
the 90s was really just like, do you have short hair? Are you blonde? Are you butch, but not like too butch that it would scare away men.
Come be in the movies.
Yay!
I'm also glad that they let her get to do all this slapstick, because sadly it's pretty rare for female characters to get to do this much heavy slapstick.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of physical comedy with her in this movie, and that's fucking fantastic.
I mean, I'm glad we're getting more women in comedy now, but can we please get more women in slapstick already?
Absolutely.
I'm begging.
Anyway, go
Amen.
support the mask on viral.
Hell
Yes.
And I love they're driving through the jungle and it's getting all creepy and they're hearing the typical movie jungle sound effects. And then suddenly Woody Woodpecker.
Woody Woodpecker, the Three Stooges.
You know what? Woody Woodpecker is a nice break from constantly hearing fucking kookaburras in Africa and South America. That's not a monkey making that noise. That is a bird that lives in Australia.
Also, I love that in the transformation machine, there's a bunch of options for deformed characters. One of them is fucking Michael Jackson.
Yep.
No notes. That is perfect.
I kind of have to wonder what Brook Shields thought of that joke.
Did she have a thing with him, or were they just like strictly platonic? I can't remember.
I have not had this confirmed. Maybe someone else could. I have heard rumors that Michael Jackson lost his virginity to Brook Shields.
Oh my god.
That it's just a rumor I heard. I don't know if it's true.
I love the gag that while they're all tied up, Elijah is just laughing at the family circus, and that's why Ricky's like, "You're out of your mind!"
But getting back to the character of Julie, like, when this was written in the 90s, she was clearly written as a satire of what was then called PC culture, and I guess now you'd call it woke culture.
I wonder what we're going to call that in like 20 more years.
I know, it's weird, but it carries the serious risk of not aging well, but I do think what makes it work in this movie is that she's the perfect avatar of a very certain stripe of the woker than thou types who do certainly exist, much as, right wing makes too big a deal out of this shit. But those fucking Tumblr assholes do fucking exist who are just so committed to their causes that they often fail to see obvious red flags right in front of them. The way Julie keeps talking about, oh, you don't exploit people, you expose the real world for how it is.
I like to think that she's one of those protesters who still sadly gets into shady shit, like environmental protesters who team up with gas companies.
Yeah, or fucking PETA.
She's all about, social justice and the environment. And then she's like, oh my God, cool, a freak show.
Yeah.
Plus, because the movie is still making fun of Ricky, it doesn't feel like they're punching down too much on her. So,
Okay, getting back to Quaid and the whole family circus gag happens. Now, admittedly, I haven't listened to the DVD commentary in a few years, but if I remember it correctly, even though the test screening didn't go well, the one joke that the audience really laughed hard at for some reason was the Ramada towels joke.
Hey, you're not supposed to have that stuff! Well, then I guess I'm not supposed to have these either!
For some reason, that fucking audience just thought that was the funniest goddamn thing in the movie.
Stealing shit from your hotel room is probably one of the most relatable jokes you can think of, because no matter what an upstanding societal citizen you are, you have stolen at least one thing from a hotel room. Soap, shampoo.
For sure.
I think you're supposed to steal the soap because they literally don't use it twice. When you check out, the maids literally replace your soap, so you may as well take it. That's why it's so small.
You never know with hotels these days.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, with Zygrot 24, do we make a Nickelodeon slime joke or the Panera Bread green smoothie joke? Because it looked like both to me.
Yeah, that definitely had some Nickelodeon slime or possibly GAC influence just in its fucking texture there. And getting back to fucking Randy Quaid's computer, the mouse is a mouse.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cute.
The 90s and the 2000s were such a golden age for, novelty mice. You had like cheeseburgers, race cars, shit like that. You had some with like liquid inside them. Ew. Why did they never make like one that was like actually like a stuffed or taxidermied mouse.
Well, I wouldn't use an actual mouse, but maybe just like a little tiny plush. But yeah.
Yeah, like a plush toy that looks like a mouse. That does seem like such a no-brainer.
No, go big or go home. I want a mouse.
You want Mickey stuffed and mounted, yeah.
Yeah, I do, and I want him turned into a wireless mouse so I can use him.
Also, even if this movie was otherwise not very good, and thankfully it is, it would be still a keep the tapes for the scene where Julie and Ernie are turned into a Harryhausen dinosaur, then a Harryhausen Cyclops, and Gumby and Pokey alone.
Gumby jerking off, by the way.
Yes.
The dinosaur struck me as more Will Vinton, but maybe that's just me. Or maybe it is Harryhausen. The Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad was definitely Harryhausen, but
also, deep down in our hearts, because we know we have to say this, DeviantArt would absolutely have a fucking field day with that scene.
Oh my god.
Yep.
They would find a way, and you know how they would.
And I love the conceit of the laughing man, who we later find out, spoilers, is William Sadler, but he's just laughing over the phone, and then Randy Quaid asks him to slow down and repeat that a little, and he goes, ha. That's what I mean when I say this is like a spoof movie that's not really spoofing anything, because I don't know.
It's spoofing itself.
Yeah, pretty much. It thinks of these weird concepts, and then, it's one of those movies that, breaks the rules, makes new ones, and then breaks those. I love it.
And I also love that he's just laughing, and then Elijah hangs up, and it's like, asshole.
Yeah, asshole, yeah. Okay, now we got to talk about Alex Winter's facial prosthetic.
Yes.
Because it is so
fucking cool.
Done by Screaming Mad George, yes. Screaming Mad George in collaboration with Bill Corso, who later won an Oscar for his makeup for Lemony Snicket.
Yo, nice.
And by the way, this movie was nominated for Best Makeup at the Saturn Awards that year, but unfortunately lost to Addams Family Values. And
understandable.
And this wasn't even nominated for an Oscar for Best Makeup, and that was the year the Best Makeup Oscar went to fucking Mrs. Doubtfire. So,
I mean, I love Robin Williams, but come on.
But God, Ricky's facial prosthetic is so beautifully hideous.
It is.
It even squirts out pus.
That's a fantastic sentence to hear out of context. It even squirts out pus.
Also, I love when he takes him into the tiny little shack and there's just that Bob Vila again.
Bob Vila, yes.
Bob fucking Vila.
Now, according to Wikipedia, that's really Bob Vila making a cameo, but Wikipedia actually got that wrong.
So they could get Morgan Fairchild, but they couldn't get Bob Vila.
I guess not. I don't know. But getting back to the facial prosthetic, the interesting thing about it is that I've seen behind the scenes footage of this movie, and Alex Winter, it looks like he can't talk when you see it in the movie. It looks like his mouth is just being forced open. He could talk when he had that prosthetic on. They designed it so that he could move his mouth and talk and eat and whatever else he needed to do. But when his lips moved, you could tell it was fake.
Yeah.
You could tell much more easily that it was fake. He could do it, but the prosthetic only looked real when he had his mouth wide open. So anytime he's on camera in freak form, his real mouth was always wide open to make the effect look slightly less unconvincing. So all his dialogue when he's in freak form had to be ADR'd, of course. But
of course, yeah. And also I love that they just had a bunch of outfits ready for Julie Ernie. Like,
yes.
Like they
Randy Quaid has been preparing for this, obviously,
Exactly.
I'm sorry, another funny story about the prosthetic. Alex Winter had to wear that prosthetic for so much of the shoot while juggling co-directing duties to boot. And the makeup would take so long to apply and remove that after a while, he just started sleeping in it. He would literally drive back to his hotel with the full makeup still on so that he could actually get some sleep, which got him some interesting looks from the other hotel guests as he's walking through the halls. And one time he remembers he was walking through the hotel's parking garage on his way to his car, and the prosthetic monster head is still on. He's just slept in it. And these three businessmen in suits are walking up to him and they say, "Bill and Ted!"
Oh,
Now, as much as I love this movie, and I mentioned my favorite joke, Probably my least favorite joke. One of the few jokes in this movie that I think just doesn't work at all is the projectile vomiting scene. Like, I could barely handle that shit in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, and this ain't Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Sorry, but
yeah, you know, you kind of fucked up a joke when Family Guy did it better than you.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I really don't like puke, like, at all. I have emetophobia, and I still fucking love that one Family Guy scene where they're all fucking puking all over each other.
But anyway, going back to the designs of this movie, we gotta talk about the Hollywood Squares joke that introduces
Yes!
Yeah! That was beautiful.
And also, it's a perfect representation of the glorious randomness of this movie. Why are they suddenly playing Hollywood Squares? Who fucking cares? It's Hollywood, who fucking cares?
I love that the worm is supposedly the smart one of them, but even he says dumb stuff like, who starred in Exorcist 2? Olivia Newton-John.
Let me tell you about that joke. Again, going back to the original script, if you look at their mouth movements in that scene, that Exorcist 2 question is very obviously dubbed. It doesn't match their lip sync at all. And originally the question was, who starred in International Velvet?
Oh.
For those who don't know, because I sure as fuck did, and I had to Google this shit, International Velvet was a very poorly received sequel to a classic film from the 40s called, of course, National Velvet. And Worm guessed not Olivia Newton-John, but Olivia de Havilland. And when in fact the real star of International Velvet was Tatum O'Neal. Now, my guess is that was a Peter Churnin post-production note. Because he's probably like, no one remembers International Velvet. Make it a bad sequel that people remember, like Exorcist 2. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares if the lip sync doesn't match? We're not releasing this shit. But fortunately, when Alex Winter's lip sync doesn't match, you can't tell.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there we go. And also, all of the designs are great, but I think my absolute favorite in the movie is Sockhead.
Sockhead!
Yes.
Oh, yes. I personally identify with Sockhead.
Bobcat Goldthwait as a man with a sock puppet for a head, casting of the fucking millennium, far as I'm concerned.
Amen.
I love that his eyes are just glued on top like a fucking Muppet. That's
funny enough, I think this was the same year that the Moxie show premiered. I could hear a lot of Moxie in his voice as well.
The fact that he's got a sock on his head and then it falls off and everyone's like, there's a hand under there.
Fucking Gibby Haynes. There's a hand under there.
I love the joke later when he gets shot and they take the sock off and the mouth is literally just fucking coughing up blood.
Also, when they're all talking about their stories, I love that they cut to a hammer and it turns out it was a wrench that they dropped into the Zygrot.
Oh, that was so fucking funny.
That was amazing.
Also, when they're dressed up as milkmen, the fucking hammer is dressed up in a tiny milkman costume.
Oh my god, I never noticed that.
They go above and beyond for this fucking joke.
I never noticed that. Holy shit, that is great. That is fucking great. I gotta watch for that.
And also the frogman is just a scuba diver.
I wonder if the makeup budget ran out, or maybe the makeup artists were just too exhausted after all these other... Because we got to talk about the other freaks who get introduced in the Hollywood Squares scene.
We got Nosy.
Nosy the Noseman.
Cowman.
Yeah, well, Nosy the Noseman was played by Jeff Kahn, who is probably best known as the co-creator of the Ben Stiller Show the previous year. Along with Ben Stiller himself and Judd Apatow. The three of them created that show. And yeah, then we got the cowboy and Rosie the Pinhead, which is this amazing subversion of a subversion, because Rosie the Pinhead is obviously a reference to Todd Browning's Freaks, but she's presented as like this sultry, beautiful woman. But then the lights turn on and she performs later, and nope, she takes off her sunglasses and she is just a pinhead.
Yes. This movie was sympathetic to pinheads before SpongeBob and American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also Cowboy, I want to talk about him. I'm not sure if he was physically played by this guy, but at the very least he was voiced by John Hawkes, who had previously worked with Alex Winter on Barbecue Movie with the Butthole Surfers. And John Hawkes went on to be a very respected character actor, probably best known for playing Saul Starr in Deadwood.
Oh, yeah.
But he was also in From Dusk Till Dawn and The Perfect Storm and Steven Spielberg's Lincoln. And he played Frances McDormand's abusive ex-husband in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh, wow.
And he even got a Best Supporting Actor nomination for the movie Winter's Bone. But before any of that, here he is playing a talking cow, doing a bad Pat Buttram imitation.
Which I swear Troma later ripped off, because in the Toxic Avenger 4, there is a character called Mad Cowboy with this same exact fucking design.
Maybe they did just reuse the makeup for this. I don't know, but
probably.
But yeah, this stupid fucking movie has 2 Oscar nominees in it, Randy Quaid and John Hawkes.
Also, in the middle of the Hollywood squares, they have Paul Lind's skeleton.
Yes. The skeleton of Paul Lind, which is such a sick fucking joke, but in the best possible way. And by the way, the script had an amazing moment later when they're sneaking into Elijah's laboratory and they're sneaking back and the tunnel collapses. Paul Lind's skeleton sacrifices himself and thrown in. And they're all mourning about Paul Lind being dead. And that, of course, leads to a lot of Paul is dead Beatles jokes. So...
Oh my God, why did they cut that?
That was amazing.
I don't know, it's so good.
Also, they say at one point, that's Nosy. He can smell the future. And I'm just like...
He can smell the future.
Is this a Clown TV reference?
I do not want to know what their idea of Nosy Pie is.
Oh,
God.
God.
This is the second thing we've reviewed this year that has a giant nose, by the way.
I want to read one of my notes to you verbatim. You know, it's at times like this when Alex Winter, as a deformed half-man, half-monster, is swatting at the spirit of an annoying little ugly Alfred E. Newman kid, while a talking cow doing a Pat Buttram imitation explains telepathy to him, that I'm reminded of that line from MST3K. It just dawned on me how weird this film is.
Fucking cinema.
I love that so
absolutely.
Much. We actually brought up the whole Stewie trying to rescue Ricky and let the press know about it. I love that the only one he can get to actually publish it is a fucking tabloid.
Yeah, of course. Oh,
not just any tabloid. World Weekly News, the one that literally the whole point of it was that it's fake.
Do you want me to show you out? No. And then he just yeets himself through the window.
Everyone wants to be Jazzy Jeff so bad.
Of course.
Everybody wants to be Jazz and Jeff.
So then we got the actual freak show sequence in the middle of this movie. I will say, looking in the audience, for South America, there sure are a lot of white people. But
yeah,
I think the joke is that this is a fake country because there was mostly white people. But yeah,
absolutely. And of course, the I Like Ike guy is back. Why not?
Yes. Although, before we talk about the freak show sequence, I got to talk about the scene where Julie is basically having fun with Ortiz the dog boy, and Ernie not having it. I'm just like, that's a fetish.
Doggy style, yeah.
Well, to quote the movie Strays, isn't it just normal style when a dog does it?
It's just style.
And there's a moment where Ortiz puts his hand on Ernie's chest, and Ernie says, Ortiz, that's me. That's me, that's me, Ortiz. That's me. He's just trying to...
And also, later at the freak show, another one of my favorite lines is, I know what you're going through. I, too, had an eating disorder.
Just so out of left field.
Another favorite joke of mine is when Randy Quaid is this rowdy ass audience, shooting at each other, just fighting each other, the throwing shit all over the place. And Randy Quaid just gets on mic and says, "Quiet, please." And they all immediately calm down and take their seats.
The only joke that actually squicked me out in this was when you see the petting zoo with the dog with 2 asses, and then it pans over to the heavy petting zoo. The guy making out with a goat. What the fuck was that?
Yeah. Since the goat looked fake, it thankfully didn't bother me too much, but it was still shit.
I saw that and I was just like, this is something you could only have ever done in the 90s.
There was one joke that confused me where it was like, the most sensitive can leave, and these 2 guys in the audience just stand up. I was confused by that at first, then I looked it up. Oh, it's a gay joke.
Yeah, you can't see it, but I'm talking my collar right now.
What are you gonna do? It was the 90s.
It could have been worse.
And by the way, those sensitive audience members were the directors, Alex Winter and Tom Stern.
Oh my god, yeah. And I think Tom Stern also played the milkman later on.
Yes, he plays the milkman as well.
Oh god, he has such a great line.
Yeah, there's a turd in here that looks like Kim Basinger. Boy, if I had a dime for every time I heard that.
I fucking love that Nosey's whole shtick has nothing to do with him just having a giant nose. He just dances in a gorilla suit.
Let me tell you, I watched a video of Alex Winter doing a Q&A after a screening of this movie, and he said that's his favorite joke that never gets a laugh. Like for some reason, no matter how much the audience loves the rest of the movie, for some reason, just Nosy in the gorilla suit just always flies over everyone's head, and Alex Winter kind of loves that it does.
I'm the first one to get the joke, Alex. You're welcome.
And when Rosie the Pinhead does her, incoherent shrieking, the audience is swaying back and forth.
Why didn't they give that respect to Yoko Ono? It's just, it's madness, I tell you, madness.
Oh no, it's the Yoko Ono alarm.
Well, we mentioned the sock head coming off. I also love the line, puppeteering is an admirable skill in its own right.
Yes.
And of course, all three hands flipping the audience off. That's
also, I love when Ricky's performing his Shakespeare monologue. It cuts to Nigel Crump in the audience, and he's like, read the subtitles if you need. And it's like, I'm ugly and I can't get laid.
Yeah, subtitles for the culturally illiterate. Now, a couple notes about that. In the original script, that professor was written to be a cameo from Alistair Cook. Shoot for the moon, I guess.
Wow.
Holy shit.
But shockingly, Alistair Cook turned down the offer to cameo in Freaked. No idea why. And also in the script, the Shakespeare subtitles went on much, much longer. And the subtitles kept reiterating. At first it said, I'm ugly. I'm really ugly. I'm fucking butt ugly, all right? And after I never get laid, the last subtitle was going to read, because I'm ugly. My guess is that Peter Churnin made them cut the scene way down. But
also,
what are you gonna do?
When he goes to the everything except shoes guy in the audience, and he's like, Ricky, I don't know how to say this. You're ugly. You're just too damn ugly.
Yeah.
Just rips his head off.
Eat shit! Now you're just being childish.
I love that when he's holding the guy's head, they don't even try to make him properly look decapitated. Nope. He's just wearing a black shirt.
Yeah.
That might be the post-production budget being slashed. Like they couldn't afford a better CGI effect. I don't know.
It kind of makes it funnier, though.
Yeah.
Also, when everybody's running around, the I Like Ike's guy got stabbed with his own sign.
Impaled. Perfect. And we got to talk about the Larry Bud Melman cameo.
Oh, yeah.
Larry Bud, for those who don't know, Larry Bud Melman was the guy saying, what's the matter? Afraid of a little rough stuff? Welcome to show business, morons. For those who don't know, Larry Bud Melman was a character created by the late, great Calvert DeForest for David Letterman's original late night show in the 80s, where he sort of served as the show's mascot, for lack of a better word. And the joke was that no one quite knew why he was there or what he did. He was just this weird looking old short dude who showed up every so often to just do random weird stuff on the Letterman show. And from there, he kind of became a celebrity in his own right, often randomly popping up here and there in like commercials and music videos and stuff. Like there's that Run DMC video where they're going into the rock museum at the beginning, and he's like, hey, this is a rock museum. You don't belong here. Yeah, that's Larry Bud Melman. You see him do cameos in all sorts of shit in the 80s and 90s.
The milkman gag is just so fucking good, especially when Ortiz is like, 12 milkmen is understandable. 13 is too many.
You just see Randy Quaid in his den. Hey, you see those milkmen fighting out there?
Yeah, that whole thing. That's a lot of milkmen on the same route. No wonder they fight. Again, so much fucking amazing weirdness in this movie. The eyes.
The Rastafari eyes.
Fucking Rasta eyes.
The Rastafari eyes. The eyes in the giant Randy Quaid head are fucking Rasta guards. These 3-foot tall sentient eyes that happen to have Rastafarian voices for no readily apparent reason. Feed me random weird shit, movie. Hook it to my veins. I love it.
And later on, one of them is just smoking weed through their iris.
Yes.
In the words of the Butthole Surfers, you never know just how you'll escape with Rastafari's.
This movie is what happens when you drink nothing but cough syrup.
Huzzah! A movie where a dog says squirrel. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah, this movie, Ups probably stole that from this movie. Fucking 16 whole years earlier.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I love how Randy Quaid's den is just this charming 60s suburban den. And I had to Google what Fiddle Faddle is. Apparently it's a brand of candy-flavored popcorn.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it looked kind of gross when I looked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, so I'll just say it quickly here. One of my only disappointments with this movie is that they didn't once make a wild ride joke with Mr. Toad.
Ah, well.
Oh, God, yes.
Let's be fair. Everyone wants Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Ah.
You know, my only problem with this movie is that the freak out sequence with all the gore at the freak show didn't go on for a little bit longer. I kind of feel like there could have been a little bit more gore.
Yes.
They might have cut it down for the PG-13, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, I love the milkman outfit designs, like that Cowboy's udders are just sticking out of the milkman uniform, and Julie Ernie has a milkman uniform with 2 neck holes.
Also, it just hit me that since Cowboy is a cow and not a bull, he's canonically trans. Good for him.
Just
exactly.
like Otis from Barnyard.
And I love how all the shit that's happened in the movie so far is just perfectly natural to these freaks. But hearing about giant Rasta eyeballs with machine guns is just too much for them. Yeah, that's over the fucking line.
Come on. Steve has Aladdin. That's insanity talk.
Oh, and Cowboy makes blue milk. That's where Star Wars got it.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
That's probably why Disney bought Fox, so they could get Cowboy's blue milk to sell at Galaxy's Edge.
I will say that the romance between Julie and Ricky was a little forced, but it's barely focused on, so it's not a big deal.
It's fine.
Yeah.
They almost make a joke of it at the end. So the freaks hatch this plan to escape, and they're building, I don't even remember why, but they do this like Eye of the Tiger montage where at one point they do this amazing camera angle joke where you see Rosie the Pinhead nailing something into a wall, and the camera turns to reveal she's nailing her own hand into the wall. Love jokes like that. Love Mr. Toad eating a whole plane.
Yes!
A whole lot of plane disaster jokes in this movie. What is this movie about? Me?
And also, when they're underground, they've come across a giant-ass kingdom, and then it just turns out to be a slideshow. The Lost City of Nod, and also they just show
My bar mitzvah.
The weirdest fucking joke. Like, I don't know where the fuck they thought of that.
Closest allegory. The closest allegory I can think of is like that ancient Greek thought experiment about the shadows in the cave. I still don't think that's what they were aiming for.
I think they were just really fucking high when they wrote
It was the
that.
90s. Of course they were. On everything.
There is no sober explanation for these jokes. It's
Also, when they're making their way into the bunker, the thing that makes Randy Quaid recognize there's something going on is a styrofoam cup dropping.
after they've made all this noise, and suddenly he turns around really fast. Styrofoam cup. I also want to say this. When I showed this movie at a movie night with friends years ago, I'm not going to name names, but there were a couple of people there who weren't really part of my usual movie night gang. Nice people, but they just weren't really getting into Freaked. It just kind of wasn't their thing. It was the test screening all over again, basically.
Yeah.
But even they laughed their asses off at Styrofoam Cup.
And also, they all find a bunch of macaroons, which leads into something later.
The interesting thing is if you pack a movie with just wall-to-wall weirdness, there's no way of knowing what specific bits of weirdness are actually foreshadowing something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the genius of making a movie like this.
Also, I relate to Mr. Worm when he says he hates macaroons.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan either.
I like the frozen ones from Trader Joe's.
They're one of those foods where, like, I'll eat them if they're there, but I'm not gonna go out of my way.
I had a good peanut butter and jelly flavored one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We talked a bit about it earlier, but Sockhead's death is both...
Oh, man.
It's so gloriously silly.
Right up there with Mufasa, man.
It's so tragic. They made me feel bad for a sentient fucking sock.
Yes. He says he's not much for dying. Just perfect way to end that joke.
I can't believe everyone was talking about Iron Man when this was what we should have been focusing on.
Oh, a joke that I skipped over earlier is when they're talking about the plan and they're like, Ricky, how'd you come up with that? And then he's like, well, initially I was going to suggest that we order sea monkeys and then train them to do it.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot to mention earlier, the board of directors at EES is just these fucking old men who are operated like puppets.
Hey, look, it's Congress.
And then the forklift carrying them into carrying them into Elijah's laboratory, and then one of them falls off. I hope that stuntman was well compensated. That's
God.
Agreed.
I legit thought that was a dummy at first. That was a real person.
It might have been a dummy. That
probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, of course, another clip I've used in a video, specifically my Shrek 4D video, is "We'll kick Disney's dead ass."
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And now, guess who owns this movie?
It's similar to the Simpsons movie saying, I'm the mascot of an evil corporation.
Or that one time where, Homer asked how much a churro was going to be, and it was $14, and he started sobbing, and then was just like, here.
Also, I love the two-headed chicken that Stewie has to fight off.
And then no one notices Stewie's out of his cage.
I love that when Ricky's getting another Force vision of Stewie, the fucking chicken's in there.
Yes. And so then it cuts to the next freak show that night where they've all been captured.
Well, hang on. Before we get to that, I want to talk about the corporate monologue.
Yes.
Where they're talking about how they want to use Zygote 24 to further control the workers. And boy, that's unfortunately aged well. They basically Amazon before Amazon. Fucking, just the way he says, it's a new master race and we own the copyright.
Oh, boy.
These people saw the future of encroaching corporatist fascism, nightmarishly prescient. I love how William Sadler says, Bill, if I could just add one thing, those who dare oppose us will stand knee-deep in the blood of their children.
Actually, on top of that, along with... It was scary enough thinking of that happening to workers. It's scary that they were also suggesting they should change the consumer as well, so they'll be forced to keep buying it. It's like... Well,
what do you think the internet's for?
That's basically some from I have no mouth and must scream shit. That's... Oh.
My God. Oh, and I want to point out the line, this guy's good. We lured him away from Pepsi. In the original script, there was a whole running gag throughout the movie involving Pepsi. It was basically a running gag that made fun of product placement, and they used Pepsi as their avatar for product placement.
And then Wayne's World did that joke.
Well, this would have been after Wayne's World came out. I think they were intending this as like the next level up from the Wayne's World joke. One of the protesters at the airport was going to have a sign that said "Drink Pepsi." In the claymation scene where Julie and Ernie are morphing together, they were going to briefly morph into a Pepsi logo. When the crowd was cheering for Ricky's Shakespeare monologue, they were just going to insert a single frame of the Pepsi logo, like subliminal advertising.
You know what they could have done is after they said they got him from Pepsi, have him freak out over a wire hanger.
The canister with the antidote in it was going to be a collectible Pepsi cup. I think they were hoping to actually make collectible Pepsi cups with this movie. Eventually it was going to build to the point where they just had a skywriter in the background of an exterior shot saying, "Pepsi, you got the right one, baby." And my favorite, the shack where they kept all the freaks, that fucking TARDIS that's bigger on the inside. That
Such
shack,
a great shot too.
That shack was going to have an unexplained Pepsi machine in the corner that was just there. And at the end, when the FBI raids the place, they were going to peel off the Pepsi decal and reveal it had actually been a Coke machine all along.
That would have been
very
brilliant.
sad that's not in the movie.
Oh, man. Also, we gotta talk about the Stewie monster.
Yes.
Good God.
Yes.
That creature design of the giant monster Stewie is just so fucking magical.
It's so fucking ugly and so fucking hideous. I love it.
Yes.
I especially love hearing this child's voice saying stuff like,
Your ass is mine, Skuggs!
Yeah, that was the clip I used in my Halloween video when I just mentioned, when I just made a reference to, you know, the time of year when we all embrace monsterism. And what better monster to cut to than the Stewie monster?
Yeah, there you go.
wasn't that also the picture you used as a stand-in for Steve Bannon and your Kill
Yes!
video?
That is true. I used that for Steve Bannon.
My cabinet will include such tremendous forces of personality.
John Cristofalusi saying it's the funniest movie in years.
Vic. Fuck, he's fired again.
You know what's so funny? Who could have predicted that after you released that, it would have turned out he was actually thinking about killing some of the people criticize him?
Oh, boy.
Good Lord.
But anyway.
And of course, how do you defeat the Rasta eyes? Throw dirt in them.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Nobody thought of that before.
It's so simple, but it's perfect.
I love how the Professor Nigel Crump caption keeps popping up every time he shows up on screen.
Yes. Then
I used to blow up toads with firecrackers, pal, was actually foreshadowing.
Oh, man.
Then later, Mr. Toad gets blown up with a firecracker.
That's right.
And I also want to point out, when they originally offered the role to Randy Quaid, at first he was kind of on the fence about whether or not he wanted to do it. But what ultimately swayed him was when they pointed out to him that he would get to do an Ed Sullivan impression.
Yes.
That's a really big shoe. Apparently that was a deal breaker of him doing the movie.
Yeah, so there's this giant fucking flesh shoe just wandering around South America now.
Yeah.
They never go back to that, so.
That was going to be the sequel or the spin-off movie.
They go on a road trip.
I love that the thing that gets Ricky out of his state of being the full monster is hearing Cowboy say, your heart, your heart. Oh.
And then it cuts to him actually saying that over and over again.
Yes.
Also, the fucking milkman shows up again and they just beat the shit out of him.
They just punch him.
Doesn't come back after that, so he probably died. I don't know.
At some point, this movie just gets so batshit that you can't help but stop paying attention and just enjoy it. Just turn your brain off and just...
What do you say about half this shit? It's just perfect. It's beautiful.
We did talk about the machismo gag, but what I also love is that, Ricky, you've been talking for 90 minutes. It's like, now they're going to commercial?
Yeah, and that machismo commercial, like, that's the kind of shit they would do on the Idiot Box all the time.
Oh, UHF.
I feel like machismo would even work today. All you'd have to do is brand it the anti-woke cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that it's just like the anti-woke beer.
And also randomly cutting to a commercial in the middle of the movie's climax. That was a joke that Talladega Nights later basically ripped off.
That's right.
When the cars are crashing and they suddenly cut to an Applebee's commercial.
Technically, that joke also predicted the future.
And then there's also a plot twist that it turns out the antidote was in the macaroons, so they would all be cured.
But the worm didn't eat any, so he doesn't get cured. Poor worm guy.
He probably likes being a worm, let's be real.
But he can't wipe his own ass. But
he wins every single game of Would You Still Love Me If I Was a Worm? Bitch, I am a worm!
And then the twist that when Elijah falls into the giant pit, he turns into Sky Daily.
Yeah, he turns into fucking Brook Shields. And I love so much the gag that the whole movie, you know, Ricky Coogan has been telling his story in silhouette. And of course, his face is all jacked up. But then when it's revealed that he turned normal at the end, they fix his light. They turn on his light, and it turns out he just had a cactus behind him the whole time. Even though
it's such a dumb joke.
Earlier we saw the cactus move around. It was clearly part of his face, but it doesn't matter. This is the type of movie where the logic only matters when it's funnier for the logic to matter. And in this case, it absolutely...
You want to know what this movie is?
This
movie is the instance where continuity would ruin the joke.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And Ortiz did survive after all. He just runs in at the end.
and he throws the squirrel into the crowd and it bites some old lady's cheek, which I wonder if that was an homage to the album cover of Weasels Rip My Flesh by Frank Zappa.
I could say that.
Alex Winter is famously a huge Frank Zappa fan, and even went on to direct a documentary about him simply called Zappa in 2020. And also, just to bring this full circle, remember how I said I first saw the airplane door gag as part of the channel hopping intro in Weird Al's 2003 Poodle Hat tour? Later on the 2011 Alpocalypse tour, he used another clip from this movie in the channel hopping intro, namely the clip of Brook Shields with Randy Quaid's voice saying, "I'm gonna drink your blood."
Do you think that's what she said to Robbie Ray Cyrus while they were in the process of creating Miley and Jackson?
That was his fetish. Are you kidding? It was.
And also, I fucking love that they're like, yeah, he looked a lot like you, Sky, except he had these huge, hideous feet. And then they look down, the feet.
Another thing about Brook Shields and Hannah Montana, the thing is, I don't think they ever gave the reason the mom died, so we gotta assume it was something related to this. I don't know, maybe the SWAT team came and shot her to death or something finally.
And then the movie ends on the perfect shot, just them all just celebrating, and then Brook Shields popping up again.
Yeah. One thing I want to comment on, Robert Smigel, who's this amazing legendary SNL writer in the 80s and 90s, probably best known for creating and being Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. He tried to get into feature screenwriting in the 90s, and he wrote a Hans and Franz movie that never got made, and a Da Bears movie that never got made. And every time it was the same thing. He would write this hilarious script that was nothing but funny for 100 pages. And the studio invariably would always say, well, this is a really funny script, but where's the heart? That line, but where's the heart, just became the bane of his existence after a while. And it's something that kills a lot of comedies. This whole 4-quadrant idea that every movie needs to find some way to be everything to everyone. And suddenly you got, CGI Rocky and Bullwinkle lecturing the audience of don't lose track of your childhoods, kids.
Yeah.
Shut up. That's not what Rocky and Bullwinkle was ever about. But, and Smigel cited Anchorman as the first big studio comedy that was just allowed to be nothing but funny for its running time. But Freaked was made over a decade before Anchorman.
Agree.
And not only is it completely unconcerned with but where's the heart, it makes fun of the very idea of a movie like this having heart or having a moral at the end. When Ernie starts talking like a feminist and Julie just punches him.
Yes.
So I guess she's converted to anti-wokeism.
Why
don't
not?
know.
Who cares?
She's a grifter, probably.
Yeah,
And
she's got her own YouTube channel by now.
Also, what happened to the real Sky Daily? Did she even exist?
Probably not. And also, I forgot to mention, but no wonder the FBI still hasn't found every single January 6th insurrector. They're too busy investigating all the weekly world news articles.
Well, actually, to answer your question, there was a deleted line in the script that revealed that the Stewie monster ate the real Sky Daily. Why not?
Of course, this movie almost had Boar.
Of course.
So that about wraps up my notes, unless you guys have anything else.
I've got my final verdict, but otherwise, yeah, that's it for me.
Keep the tapes.
Keep the goddamn tapes.
Without question, this movie is a fucking masterpiece.
Keep the tapes! Oh my god!
Fuck out of these! Holy shit!
And put it on Blu-ray, for God's sake. This movie deserves a Blu-ray.
Release the goddamn soundtrack.
It did get a Blu-ray release, but it's out of print, unfortunately. But track down the Blu-ray or just watch it on YouTube in HD. That's perfectly acceptable. Yeah. Oh my God, this movie fucking rocks. Not including credits. It's just 75 minutes of pure, concentrated, goofy, silly, funny hilarity from beginning to end, and I couldn't love it more. This movie belongs in my favorite subgenre of comedy, and it's a rare breed, especially nowadays, but comedies that are basically feature-length shitposts.
Yes.
Movies that movies like Monty Python and the Holy Grail or Pee-wee's Big Adventure or the Naked Gun movies or UHF or Wet Hot American Summer or Anchorman. You can even make the argument that The Great Muppet Caper and The Emperor's New Groove fall into that subgenre. The original Disney Alice in Wonderland definitely does. I would even say a lot of the classic Marx Brothers movies are basically that. Movies that not only have jokes, but basically are just one long joke, and consequently feel no need to be anything other than just funny the whole running time. And that have the raw confidence in their own comedy to know that funny is all they ever need to be. The story doesn't have to make sense. The characters can be broad stereotypes. There doesn't need to be any heart. It's a movie that feels like it shouldn't have gotten made. Like, movie studios specifically exist to stop movies like Freaked from getting made.
Exactly.
But thank God this slipped through the cracks and did. It's just this ridiculous gem of a fucked up, crazy ass movie that way too few people know about. Well, thankfully it has gained something of a cult following over the years, but still not enough of one to my mind. Like I know this podcast is for obscure media, and this does unfortunately qualify. And I wish it was more well-known, because it is just precisely my kind of stupid.
It's my kind of stupid, too. How have I just now seen this?
This movie is very similar to The Emperor's New Groove, where the whole behind-the-scenes shtick could have easily sunk it, but instead what ended up becoming of it, maybe even better, and just turned out to be absolutely incredible.
Like I said, it's a movie that people discover, and if you're attuned to its very weird wavelength just right, you feel very protective of it. It's definitely not a movie for everyone. The people who hate it really fucking hate it, but the people who love it really fucking love it, and I most assuredly count myself in the latter group.
Absolutely.
Monster
We're gonna
Stewie
kick
bless
Disney's dead
this
ass
freaky
until
little
they
movie.
put this movie on Disney Plus.
Yes, we will.
Damn straight.
And this will be my final thought.
Yes.
As movies about freak shows go, it's way better than The Greatest Show.
American Horror Story Season 4 is still really
way
hard.
fucking better.
It's slept on. People are just mean to it. I don't care what anyone says. I love it.
Valid. Although, fuck Ryan Murphy.
Still love American Horror Story, but fuck that guy.
All right. So, Tony, thank you so much for joining us today for this brilliant fucking movie. Just
my
absolute
pleasure.
Masterpiece. Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug?
I would love to plug my podcast, Escape from Vault Disney, where in every episode, my guests and I review either a movie, a TV episode, a TV special, or a series of shorts available on Disney Plus, chosen completely at random by our almighty randomizer, and we deem it a Disney Plus or a Disney minus. I've had all three of these delightful motherfuckers on my podcast, both together and
I am
separately.
very honored to be a motherfucker, Tony.
Aw.
Of all the motherfuckers, you're the motherfuckeriest.
And by the time you listeners hear this, my most recently... I don't know what my most recently released episode will be. It'll either be on Star Wars Visions Season 2, Episodes 2 and 4, Screecher's Reach and I Am Your Mother, or I'll have finished our episode on ABC's Once Upon a Time, Season 1, Episode 12.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I know someone who's going to love that.
Green Screens Ahoy. I'll have one of those episodes. You can just look me up, figure out what the new episode is. That's Escape from Vault Disney, available wherever podcasts aren't sold. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tony Goldmark and support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Tony Goldmark.
Well, at the moment, I've deactivated my Twitters to take a break because officially at this point, the site is just turning into Diet Truth Social. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on Discord at Mission Breakout and Muppet Vision _3D on Blue Sky. Also, I forgot to mention the intro that half our podcast at this point is basically the not on Disney Plus list.
You know what? I'm gonna make you guys find me. Listen to other episodes to find out where I am, mainly because I really haven't uploaded to YouTube in a long time, and also Twitter's basically dead. Don't follow me there, just report my account. I want to get banned.
All right, you can find me on the usual spots. Tyler FG on Blue Sky, Tyler FG96 on Instagram. All right, as for the show, you can find us on Blue Sky at Channel KRT. You can also find us on Instagram at Channel KRT Podcast, all one word. And we also have our Discord server and our Facebook group, which you can find in the link tree in our Blue Sky bio. And if you want to help support us, you can also check us out on Patreon, where we have exclusive minisodes, outtakes, and episodes of this very podcast at its earliest convenience. And we're also on Ko-Fi, where we have minisodes and outtakes available for $5 a pop. And of course, thank you to our pals Paul Spicknall, Tony Goldmark, Ashley Hines, and Chris Rayner for pledging to us at the $10 level. And a huge thank you to our executive producers Gomer and Mike. All right, Funeral KRT, I'll ADR this as well.